All right, everything now is being taped. All right, I'll do a quick intro.
Uh-oh.
Here we go. Quick intro. All right, everyone, I am excited to introduce you to my next guest. He has starred in Life in Pieces, Veep, Legit. You've seen him on The Daily Show, The Goldbergs. Oh my God, everywhere. He's currently starring at Dinner with the Parents on Freevee. Welcome to the show, Dan Bakkedahl. Hello.
Yes, man. Thank you so much. Thanks for having me. I love that anytime someone runs down a list of the shows that I've done, I don't care. But when they say legit, my ears perk up. I'm actually wearing my legit swag right now. You can't see it. It's the season 1 giveaway. Anyway, thank you for having me.
Oh, my. Tell me about working with Jim Jefferies. He's
It
a
was
brilliant comedian.
Oh, it was so
Brilliant.
great. I spoke with Jim yesterday. You know, we've maintained a really close friendship. The three main characters, he and I and DJ Qualls, have all remained pretty close over the years since. Jim was great. You know, I mean, he's used to being a solo performer. So there's that one thing that you got to remember, which is like, no, this is how he sees it. So this is how it needs to be done. Um, and he wasn't always in charge of that, which I think was frustrating for him. But I thought he was great to work with. A lot of fun. Never a dull moment on set with Jim.
You've been part of like a lot of shows with like multiple, like when I look at your IMDb, a lot of times you look at someone's IMDb, there is like one show, one show, one show, and then there's like a series. And then like, but
Yeah.
you've been like, I mean, it was a guest spot, but I mean, the Goldberg 17
Oh,
episodes, Made for Love.
yeah.
I mean, like that whole two
Made for Love. I was a
seasons.
regular on that show.
Yes.
Yeah, the Goldbergs was one that God, I had legit had just gotten canceled, and I was devastated. What am I going to do? And my agent said, "Well, we got an offer for the Goldbergs," and I was like, "How do I fit on the Goldbergs?" I didn't see myself that way. I saw myself as what I was doing on Legit, which was kind of like a frumpy loser, not like an uptight history teacher or science teacher or math teacher, depending on the season, which was always great, so that I could still be teaching Adam. Anyway, um, and it looked like it was just going to be an episode. That was cool. It was one of the most lovely places to work. Wendy McClendon Covey, the woman who played Beverly Goldberg, couldn't have made it a more welcoming environment if she tried. And Sean Gembroni, who I did most of my work with, who played Adam, was incredible. And now he's on Solar Opposites. I hear him swearing all the time on Solar Opposites, and I'm like, it's so strange to me to hear Adam Goldberg swearing.
Great show, The Goldbergs, and one of the few shows of recent to go that kind of
10
distance too.
years,
Yeah.
10 years, and not because it got the kind of viewership that uh Big Bang got. You know, it's not like it was a huge viewership. It was just so well done. Every episode they found a way to bring that. I always lay it on Modern Family, but I suppose it existed long before then. But like this silly, it's ridiculous, it's idiotic, and then they hit you with pulling on the heartstrings, and you go, I love these people.
That's good storytelling. Yeah.
Yeah, no kidding.
And yeah, I mean, it'll be one of those shows that people will just keep rediscovering. It's a nice time to live in the world where you can just rediscover all these old shows or even
No
new
kidding.
shows that you kind of just missed.
No kidding.
I So I want actually I wanted to kick off because I love the scene in Barry where you get popped in the head. Like, and I just wanted to
Yeah.
ask you about that. It's just like one episode and you just go down. I mean, shot in the head.
Yep. Well, I gotta say, I have had a long history of getting shot in the head, punched in the head, bottle broken over my head, got my fingers cut off, got shot in the foot. I mean, I want to make like a super tape on YouTube of just the images of me getting hit, punched, slapped, shot, and so forth. That's the second time I got shot in the head. In the heat, I got shot in the head as well. I've been shot in the face on Made for Love, but shot square in the head. That guy's dead. There's no doubt about it. I think they enjoy killing me, or people enjoy watching guys like me get hurt. I think is
Yeah,
what it is.
what is it with these casting agents there? They're like, we
Oh no,
gotta we gotta take this guy out in
but
the
I also
face.
lean into it too, like I'm like, can it be, can it be in the face? Can't I go down like boom, like a sack of rocks instead of like, can it be like you just dropped me? But that scene, here's what I'll say. Bill Hader directed that episode, starred in that episode. There's, obviously wrote a bunch, obviously he's producing, blah, 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 right? Hanging out in between takes, like it's not like I know Bill real well, but we both started in New York at the same time. I was on the Daily Show, he was on SNL, and we all had friends in common. John Lutz, Jason Sudeikis, they were like our bridges. And Bill managed to hang out, shoot the shit at the, on the set while he's directing it, and then go in there and shoot those scenes that are incredibly taxing because he's sweating profusely, he's hiding, he's hyperventilating, all that kind of stuff. We were done by lunch and it looks great. And how many people die? The guy in the ceiling, the security guard, 5,
A lot of people,
federal
almost
agents.
everyone in that room dies. Except
Everybody
Barry.
but Barry dies. Yeah. So like 8 people die. That usually means it's going to take 7 hours for a person to die. I don't know how they did it, but they did it beautifully and they did it really efficiently. And everyone around me, other than I think David, can't remember his last name, but one of the other bald guys in there, everyone else was a stunt performer, a stunt actor. They're actors too, but they were doing stunts. So
Yeah, everyone got shot, and then Fred Armisen's fingers blew off too.
yes,
So.
yes.
Oh man. So if I can go back in time, Dan,
Sure.
like when did you know you were hilarious and wanted to be an actor and improv and like what's
God, well, that's like 5 questions. I knew I wanted to do improv once I saw improv. So I'll work backwards from there because that was kind of like the last step was I think I'm going to do improv and then everything else happened. But I wanted to be an actor because I loved it. I loved doing it. We had a VHS tape. My brothers, my 2 older brothers made a Twilight Zone parody called The Toilet Zone, and I wasn't allowed to be in it. And I was furious. So I went and made my own laugh-in the next day. I took the tape and I set up and I did laugh-in sketches and everything. One man, pretty bad, but I was 8, and I knew I loved doing it. And then I discovered, man, the people on the couch will laugh at anything if you have the guts to do it. So that was my book reports all through middle school and high school were my book report today is turn the lights off, please. We're going to play a video. And here's, my video. So I knew I wanted to do it, but I didn't think you could make a living. And I had a teacher in Florida State University named Michael Ritchie who said, yeah, you can make a living at this if you actually apply yourself. And I went, oh man, all right, I'll try to apply myself. And that took me to Chicago because I was looking for improv. I did a theater company that toured the country for 10 months. And we went through Chicago and I saw the Second City and I went, man, I want to work here. I want to work in this place. Look at the pictures on the wall. I mean, the pictures on the wall say it all. And I just knew if I got here, I could do this and then I'd wind up where they are. I'm pretty close. I didn't quite get there.
You've done very well for yourself, sir.
But we can't compare me to, Keegan Michael Key and Tina Fey, who are people that were there while I was there. And then of course, Mike Myers and Farley and Gilda Radner and on and on and on, like it's absurd. The level of, fame and glory these people have achieved. But you know what? I like my anonymity. I like being, hey, I think that's that guy, and then I'm gone. I'm already gone. It's too late. They don't know my name. They don't know anything. It's great.
So when you were in Chicago, you didn't start off at Second City, right?
No, I started doing theater. I was just doing non-equity. So non-union storefront theater, just you'd do one. And as soon as that thing had a wrap party, you'd look in the back of the Chicago Reader or the Perform Inc. and you'd go, what's the next play? I got auditioned for 3 this week and let's see what one bites. And then that's what I'll be doing for the next 4 months. And then I took time off to do improv classes and I never came back to theater because I knew it. I had friends that opened a theater. If you ever heard of Dad's Garage, it's in Atlanta and it's been around for 20 years, 30 years. I don't know how long time. And they were all friends of mine from Florida State, and they were improvisers. And when I saw them doing what they were doing, I went, that's what I want to do. How do you do that? And that's how I found Chicago. And then Chicago led to auditions for Mad TV, SNL, Daily Show, etc.
So how did you, the learning process of improv? Just like, how long did it take before you built up the chops to
Hey, no
be part
joke.
of?
No joke, Jeff. Reading Truth and Comedy, which is Sharna Halpern's improv book, which is like the level 1 improv book, reading it right now. So in a way, never done. I felt confident the first day I got on stage because I already knew how to walk around on stage and I already knew the purpose of storytelling from the stage. So I thought, the teachers were telling me, you don't have to worry about funny, just worry about being believable. I was like, oh, done. I'm done. I already know how to do this. And my teacher said, yeah, it looks like you do. And I got a Miles Stroth was one of the teachers at IO back then. And he said, you want to do a show? And we started doing a 2-man show for nobody. And a year later, we had standing room only. We built a big, huge, really great show.
Zumpf?
That's it. Yeah. Yeah. Which apparently is not a made up word, but a German word for swamp, which we didn't know. And it's so perfect for the type of show that we did. I mean, it was it was 2 guys basically arguing over a quarter, like, that's my quarter. It's my quarter. I'll tell you something. I got that. It's just idiotic, but it was really fun. And I learned a ton. I mean, stage time is more valuable than anything else.
So this is pure improv though, right?
Oh yeah, it's 100. It's can we have a suggestion of a line of poetry or a lyric from a song? And someone goes, don't come around here no more. And then Miles and I start a scene, which is basically one of us going, I thought I told you, stay away from me. Like just a couple of angry dudes in an alleyway fighting over a quarter is what somebody said once.
Oh, that's amazing. That's
Yeah.
amazing. So from there, then you kind of connected with and became part of Second City.
Yeah, well, my Second City, I did training at the Second City at their training center, which is just classes. You just improvise on a Saturday afternoon for 3 hours in a classroom, but it's fun and it's experience. And then I went away from there for a couple of years to work only at IO, and then I came back to Second City and I toured, and then I did the 90th review on the main stage, which is their big theater. So I did exactly what I came to town to do, and quit that job in a really ugly departure.
Do tell.
Well, it's like this divisive thing in my life where it's like I've got half of the people in my life think I was an asshole for doing it, and the other half are like, hey man, thank you for being a champion. And it was that the Second City had just written up a deal with a film studio, a Hollywood film studio, which shall remain nameless unless we give a shit. I don't care, but and we had to be a part of it. And I was like, I don't want to be a part of that. I didn't come here to generate ideas to use on stage that some studio might use as a TV show. And then let's give all the details. The money would be cut in half. Half of it would go to the studio. The other half would go to the Second City. And then the Second City would take this sliver of it and say, here, and share it amongst the 6 cast members of the show. And I thought, no, man, if I create a show, I'm creating a show. I'm not, forget it. And they said, this is the deal or else you don't work here. And so I quit. First I said, I'll go back on stage. I went on stage. I broke my hand on stage, which is, it's common. If you punch a wall, you break your hand. So that's what I did. I punched a wall, punched a wall.
Symptoms may include.
Yeah, symptoms may include broken hand and discovery that you have a drinking problem. So truly, that is what happened. And I went and I got sober. I quit drinking and kind of started focusing on it more like what I think Michael Ritchie had in mind when he told me that. Like, if you can, really commit yourself to this. I wasn't committing. I was on autopilot. So in a weird way, the most tragic and stupid thing I had done to that point in my life, was actually the best thing that happened to me because it forced my hand to really commit again to the work and not just be like along for the ride because I think it's my destiny.
When you look back at that moment, I mean, because it sounds like you're making the right decision, like for like a creative integrity.
Yeah.
Do you still would you do the same thing today?
Yeah, but I would have given him 2 weeks. I would have said,
Two.
"Hey guys, I can't do this. Oh, I have to, or I'm gone. Well, then let's. Who am I putting in? Because I'm leaving." And that would have been really cool. Because then I could have come back 2 years later or whatever. Because I've so badly wanted to do another show at the Second City. Because I only did the one, and I was. I'll be honest. I was wasted. And I would like an opportunity to do it with a clear head. Now it's been way too many years. It's been 20 years since I left. So I probably aged out of the squad, but that's the only reason I think I would like to have done it. I mean, I'd like to have done it correctly because it's the right way to do it now that I understand the value of just being a better person. Then you don't have to clean it up. Then you've already cleaned it up, but everything's clean now. Everything's cool. But that would be the one reason I think.
Did they end up using anything that you created to make a TV show?
No, what they
No.
wound up using was some of our material to go for a showcase to allow other people to audition. So in a way, they were taking what I had written and using it for their own purposes, regardless of gain. They're not paying me, so it's pretty easy when your labor's free. It's pretty easy to build a house quickly. Uh, and that was the day when I found out that they were using it for this showcase. Is the day that I went, oh, we got to finish this show. But as soon as we're done with this show, I'm done. I'm out of here. You know, I'm not going to walk out on the audience, but I will walk out on you guys tomorrow.
So that must have been disappointing then to have it something you wanted and then kind of it
Oh
ends
yeah.
that way. Yeah.
Well, the good thing about it, Jeff, is I don't know how much life you've got, but in my life, that's pretty much the way most things have gone, which is like, don't get that thing you want so badly, because it's way better as a brass ring that it is actual achievable thing. Enjoy the things you're currently doing. I like to say that, but then being in a position where it's like we're coming out of a big long strike, work is really slow coming out of it, just enjoy where you are. It's like, yeah, I don't know. I wish I'd have been a chef. People never stopped eating food, even during the pandemic.
That is true. That is true. I always thought it'd be great to be able to sing, like
Yeah,
versus doing stand-up comedy, because I always felt like I was always envious that like someone with musical talent could just be somewhere and people accept the fact that they're only not listening, but they still enjoy it. Oh, that was nice because I
right.
heard it, but whereas comedy, like they need to listen, and so it was like I was like, oh, those musicians, they got it made.
They got it made, man. Except there's also that the problem with them too, and I think all of our, you know, works and lines of trajectory are subject to opinion rather than like sport, where we probably got the best field goal kickers out there. Unfortunately, one of them's a fucking raging prick, but we got the best guys are working, you know. There's no great field goal kicker who's like, well, I guess I'll cut lawns. I mean, it's very few of them. That's what you call a meritocracy, I guess, or what you would call it. But we're not in that. There's just so many unknowns and uncontrollable factors.
So, all right. So we leave Second City, and you
Yep.
mentioned auditioning for the Daily Show, Saturday Night Live. There was one up Mad TV, I think you
Mad
said.
TV. Yeah.
So
Yes.
we know you got the Daily Show. Did you get close with the other two, or it was just kind of you
No,
did it and then?
no, they stopped me before I was done with my Mad TV audition, and I was like, "Wait a minute!" And they went, "No, you're good." And I said, "I worked really hard on this. I'm finishing." I mean, I'm sorry. I know I sound like a dick, but I'm sorry. You ask us to do all this work and then come to this day, and it's extremely stressful. And we're sitting in a room with all of our best friends in town, and we're all competing, and we can all hear each other. and you're not going to let me finish. I got 30 seconds left. I've taken more time to argue with you than it would have taken to finish. So I finished. Obviously didn't get that job. Probably didn't make a friend. I made a similar impression, I think, with SNL, where I kind of said, you know, as a joke, but also kind of seriously, I said, are you guys actually hiring someone this time around, or are you just here to make us all nervous? But I don't think I said it jokingly enough that they were kind of like, oh no, we're serious. And then they turned away and never said another word to me. And the Daily Show, I didn't meet anyone or say anything. We just did an on-camera audition, and it went well. But then that experience didn't go well. It wasn't a good fit. I don't think I was meant for that. One, I'm not political. Two, I'm a group performer. I need a group. I'm just not good solo. It's just not what I want to do.
There was no ability for them. They were trying to fit you into their hole, I guess.
Yeah, and I mean, look,
their hole. Okay.
Carell and Colbert fit well there. Cordry was certainly an improv kid, group work guy. He had done, a lot of UCB stuff. So it's not like they didn't have a precedent set. It's just that I personally didn't have the mindset of like, I had also just quit drinking, just months before I got that job. So it was like anything I was doing was like, how do I walk down the street in New York without getting drunk? No excuses, but that's a fact. And it just wasn't a good fit, because like the things I would pitch were kind of like, oh yeah, well, we don't do that. I'd be like, all right, shit. Okay. Let me try it this way then. And then it was kind of like, could someone handle this? Almost like, could someone come over and talk to you? Keep him busy until his contract's up. And then I was gone. So.
Okay. So you weren't fitting in. They weren't feeling you vibing with the show either. So
it's fascinating, right? How did I get from all that chaos to this incredibly unstable position I'm in right now? It's really unbelievable. But yeah, I mean, it is what it is. You get hired for a job, you do the best. I don't believe in asking how high you want me to jump. I just jump as high as I can. And then you direct me. And they didn't really have directors there at the Daily Show. It was kind of like, you get it or you go. And that's what it is. And that's the way SNL is too, from all reports.
Well, that was early on. You did, you also did Law and Order and 30 Rock.
Yeah, well, I was in New York, so yeah, I
so
got to do. Exactly. I did a couple shows while I was there. I did Flight of the Conchords too, 30 Rock. Yeah. What was the other one? Some Jezebel James. I can't remember. It was like Parker Posey or someone was the star of it. And it was, I don't think they aired 10 episodes, but
The Return of Jezebel James.
There you go. That's it. And was I right? Is it Parker Posey? I met her. It's not like I didn't meet the star of the show, but I can't remember.
Yeah, it's Parker Posey, Lauren Ambrose. Yeah.
Yeah. And I met her dog too. Anyway, I mean, it was like my agents were great because they were like, you're unhappy there. They clearly aren't happy with what you're doing because they didn't use me. I mean, most correspondents on the Daily Show are getting on twice a week. There's 3 of them and they're getting on twice a week doing a field piece and a stand-up piece. And I was getting on once every 2 weeks. So it was the message was clear. We're not happy with how you do what you do, and we'll use you when we need you. But otherwise, maybe find another job. And so that's what I did. I was going off and doing movies and TV and stuff. And then we left when that show was over. We left and moved to Los Angeles for the writer's strike of 07 into 08.
Okay, so you moved the family across country.
Yep. So once again, how did all that stability turn into this mess you're asking? Well, stay tuned.
Well, you ended up working with Carell. You did The Office.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, my God, man. I worked with Carell 3 times and incredibly sweet, really very quiet. Like he and I and Lisa Kudrow were sitting around doing a Space Force episode. And she and I were talking about Veep, about Friends, about The Office, about him, to him, and then he would finally respond. Like he's very, I don't know about shy, but he's just keeps it in, I guess, but nice, and yeah, I of course wanted to talk about Second City because so much of the stuff I did when I toured with Second City was stuff that Carell and Colbert and Dave Rosowski and Scott Adsit, these guys all wrote the things that I toured.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and that's fun to get a chance to pick their brain about it. And they go, I don't remember because it's 38 years ago or something.
It's funny how things just come out of you and then you forget that
yeah, of course.
Oh man. So all right, well that's awesome. So what's the next big thing is well you were Community, Murray, the AC repairman.
Yes.
You had so many great stints.
It was like the crazy thing was that it would turn up like, hey, there's this episode, and maybe there's more than one, but anyway, can you do it? And I would be like, I get to play with John Goodman? Yeah, I'm in. Like that's my boss. I'm in. So sometimes it's that. It wasn't even that I watched the show or that I loved Harmon or anything. It had nothing to do with anything other than like, well, one, there's a job. Yeah, I'll do it. Two, it's with John Goodman. That sounds cool, And I had a goal at that time of like, I want to do like 2 episodes of the same show. And then it was like, oh, I want to come back in 2 separate seasons of the same show. Like I didn't, I don't know what's going on. I'm just setting goals to keep myself from going insane.
That whole thread though with the underground AC thing with Goodman, I mean, it was just
pretty great.
Community was just brilliant. Well, until it wasn't.
Yeah.
But like
right, but
yeah, but those first seasons, I mean, those first like I think 4 or 5 seasons.
Yeah, I think it was 4. Yeah.
Yeah, are like amazing.
Yeah, it was really something.
Wait, did you get to hang out with Betty White and Hot in Cleveland?
Yes,
seeing that.
Betty White stopped me and said, "You're quite good at this." And I was like, "Oh my God, thank you." I had a small look. I watched it recently. It happened to be on something, and I was like, "I think this is my episode." And then my scene started. I couldn't believe it, and I watched it the whole thing, and I went, I thought I was in that thing. I had like 2 lines, and then later I had 1 line, and then later I sat there in the corner, like angrily not saying anything. And she was like, "You're quite good at this." I got met all of them. They were all like lovely. There's plenty of horror stories out there. I'll probably just have to say no comment if we get to one.
Now I need one. Well, what's one? I need a horror story. All right, should I just randomly be saying stuff?
Yeah, just keep going, and I'll keep going. You'll find me going like, "Oh God!" All right.
So your episode of Curb.
Oh God! I'm kidding. No comment. No, I'm kidding. Yeah, go ahead.
You got. That was a good one. I mean, you had Ricky Gervais. I think Chris Parnell was in there.
Chris Parnell. Garland and Larry David.
Yep.
And that was Larry Charles had directed a pilot and wrote a pilot that I did, the first pilot I ever did. And it didn't go anywhere. And I think kind of as would that be a mea culpa? I don't know what it would be. Anyway, to make up for it, he was like, "Hey, we got to roll on Curb. It shoots in New York. You'll have to get yourself out here and put yourself up." And I thought, well, I'm not working, and you maybe only get 1 chance to be on Curb. I'll do it. And you get there, and they don't give you a script. They give you like a piece of paper that has your character description on it. You were the waiter, and you took their orders, and you came back so late that they already grabbed their own food. And your big exception is, "Do you understand? I am the waiter." And then they say, "But we were waiting," and everything else is improvised. Right. And I was terrified. I kind of knew Garland because he was at Second City the night I quit. So great, strong connection. I didn't know Larry David at all, but I knew Larry Charles, and he was directing along with Mandel, and I can't remember. They called them the twins, and there was 3 guys that directed at the same time. Maybe it was Schaefer, and it went great. And Ricky was on, and Garland was on, and they were, you know, doing bits and acting like idiots in between takes. And it was really fun to sit around and watch, like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm here. I can't believe how much my hotel room cost, but I can't believe I'm here. Uh, and it was really cool. Everyone was great. Good times.
That's awesome. Everyone has a great story from Curb. I've
Yeah.
got so all right, I'm just gonna keep randomly breaking. All right, the first time, maybe this is the first time you played a dentist, and this is 40.
Yeah, that was the first time. And I remember too that it was because the scene, it was God, what's her name? It's Judd's wife. I forget her friggin' name now.
Oh, I know who you're talking about.
But she's the star of the film. It's she and Paul Rudd. Anyway, and
Leslie Mann.
yeah, Leslie was kind of like, make some jokes, do some stuff. And I was like, it's not, we gotta go back and forth. I don't just spit out jokes. It's just I don't have it. It's not what I do. If we're going back and forth, I'll go all day. But if it's just me saying funny stuff to you, I'm in big trouble. It's just not what I do, you know?
Right, right.
But they were cool as hell. And of course, I mean, the chance to work with Judd was, of course, I'm going to jump at that. It's out of the blue, like, oh my God, this is incredible. And this is all before, I think that's before Veep came along. Or maybe I had already done my first episode of Veep, because Veep is that show that once I did that and it aired, because I did that in like November of whatever it was, 2010, and then it aired the following spring. But once that aired, I started getting all kinds of work just because they were like, we want that asshole from Veep. Who was that guy that was the jerk? And that's how I got the heat. And that's how there was a few jobs that came along that were like, oh, the Mindy Project. Like these were jobs that were like, the guy from Veep, just get that guy.
So do you like playing the jerk? Do you like
Oh God, I love it.
It's fun, right?
It's so great. I understand why Larry David created an entire show where he gets to be the crabby prick, because it's cathartic to be able to go like, I really do believe these things. I would never say it out loud, but I do believe the following things. And here they are.
Oh man, that's so funny. So after well, this is 40, but that was kind of the spin-off of one of the other Seth Rogen movies, which
I
you
think
did
so.
a Seth Rogen movie too, Observe and Report
Yes.
earlier.
Yeah. Observe and Report
Yeah.
was earlier on. I mean, I got that right out of when I first got here, I booked that movie and I thought, oh man, here we go. Seth Rogen, Anna Faris, Ray Liotta, Jody Hill's directing this thing. He wrote it. It's Foot Fist Way. It's all the Eastbound and Down. All that. I'm in. This is the mafia. And I did one weird movie that not enough people watch that I think is a really great film. But it was a weird experience too, because I was right off the Daily Show. That was the first thing I did off the Daily Show. And I had zero confidence in myself because I was sure that they were right. I just didn't know how to perform, you know, almost like you don't know how to be funny. So you can go now. Now you're going to go do this comedy film with people who are just, Ray Liotta at one point was like, can we just do one the way it's written, man? I mean, like, can we just do one? Can he just say the words like and then they'd be like, yeah, yeah. And Seth would be like, of course, sorry, and then we do one as it's scripted, but you can see Seth is just bursting at the seams to fuck with him, you know? um, but I don't know why that movie didn't, I guess Paul Blart came out at the same time, the exact same time. And you've got Seth Rogen in a dark comedy about a mall cop who lives with his sad old mom doing coke in the bathroom with the other security guard. And you've got Paul Blart, which is, it's
Right.
comic book versus hardback novel. I mean, it was just like, it just doesn't, there's no comparison. We're screwed. We're dead in the water. And I think the second Fast and the Furious movie came out the same week. And that doesn't matter in today's world because it's out and it's out. But back then it still mattered. Like, you bombed. Week one, you bombed. Everybody knows you bombed. The reviews are, I don't know what to make of this thing. And it's like, yeah, today I think it would do really well. in a weird world like this.
Sometimes movies like that, they find their own way and become just kind of classics on their own.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. I think
yeah.
Seth has had 6 movies way better than that. And I think Jody's had 3 or 4 projects way better than that film. It's not that it was the greatest thing ever, but it was good enough to have done well, and it didn't get a chance to.
As we're kind of coming into the timeline, you're about to get Legit, and then Veep is gonna, this is somewhere in between those. I just want to say you were on one of my favorite shows, Brooklyn Nine-Nine.
Oh yeah.
You did one, Lieutenant Andrew Miller, and you were siding with Kira Cedric's character. Yeah. We just binge watched that show again.
Yes.
So it's just fun to see.
That was a really fun one. I mean, like the single cam comedy being shot and run in Los Angeles at a studio is the greatest gig in the world. You know, when I worked on Life in Pieces, James Brolin, who's been working longer than I've been alive, not being hyperbolic, that's a fact. He was like, don't fool yourself, kids. This is the best job in show business because you're showing up at this nice little place with all your stuff in place. And that was what, like, Brooklyn Nine-Nine had that feel. Like, people there were like, oh no, we know, we got it good. We're at CBS Radford, you know, right in the middle of a valley. Everyone lives in the damn valley, and it's nothing to get here, and you can walk to McDonald's. It's great.
And it's so funny. And it was the only sad part about watching it was knowing, because Andre Brower had just recently died. And I mean, they're all brilliant, but he's brilliant in that.
Well, yeah, he's such an actor, right? I mean, the rest of the cast are comedic actors, and he's an actor. And I love when I see that, like, a Leslie Nielsen comes in and suddenly kills comedy for the last 20 years of his life or whatever. And a guy like Andre Brower, where you go, he's not. I worked with Isaiah Whitlock a couple times too, come to think of it. He's another guy who's he's a dramatic actor, and he doesn't change anything and does comedy, and it works great. Yeah, on and on. Exactly.
Yes. So, okay. So, all right. So you get Legit. So we talked about a little bit, and then Veep, you know, you're kind of, you're from Cleveland, not too far. I'm in Detroit, so not too far. But and then you get to play this amazing douchebag, I guess, asshole, like for a lot on Veep. So, oh, you know what I wanted to say? Like, Life in Pieces, I noticed. I don't. Do the famous people come to you? Like, did Tom Hanks and Julie Louis-Dreyfus come to you and say, "Work with our kids"? And we're going to trust them. We're going to trust them with you because we think you're awesome.
I wish, because I'd be like, hey, tell your parents to pour some of their large fortunes into making sure this show keeps going.
Yeah, because you worked with Colin Hanks and then later Henry Hall in your most recent.
Yeah. And funny crossover there is right after Veep wrapped the final season, we hadn't aired it yet. I got a hand typed letter in the mail with a stamp on it from Tom Hanks. And I don't know Tom Hanks. I still don't know Tom Hanks. I worked with Colin for 4 years. I don't know Tom Hanks. And I got a letter typed on his typewriter, speaking of how much he, first of all, loved Veep, but the character in particular, going into great detail. A letter I keep, of course. But like, just this strange, we go like, what the fuck? That's who's watching this show? I didn't, because nobody really watched that show. It was very popular with people in the business. It was not big in Moline, which is in Iowa, I think. Or is that Illinois?
One of those.
What do you know?
Well, we'll fact check after. We'll fact check after. We'll run a disclaimer at the end.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that.
Well, it's cool though to have a letter from Tom Hanks.
Oh my God, I'm not complaining, kind of bragging actually, but also just like there's that weird crossover that then I went and wound up working with his son, like very shortly thereafter. So it wasn't the final season. It must have been the second to last when we were on a big break because of Julia's diagnosis. We had basically a year off. And then after she was in remission, or I don't know exactly the terms of this, but once we went back, I had already started working on Life in Pieces. So it must have been before that.
How is working? I mean, the entire cast, I mean, you could name off a million people that are all hilarious, but I mean, she's like one of the greatest. I mean, I'll say actresses, but I mean, like just what she's done on television with like,
she's top
yeah.
5, top 3, top 2 all time non-gender specific comedic performers. She and I'm like a big Richard Mulligan fan. Like I thought that guy was brilliant because he was doing basically what Kramer wound up doing, but he was doing it before. But also, that's what Ed Norton was doing in The Honeymooners. He was Kramer. He was that character. But I think she's interchangeable top 2 with put in whoever you want in television. I think she's up there. She's it, man. She's so brilliant. And also, I mean, like that show, I think, as great as she is, that show was so well written that I almost feel like a bunch of chimpanzees could have had vocal boxes implanted and pulled that show off. It was so beautifully written. Just the scripts themselves are actually funny. Not like, okay, insert laugh probably here, I think, but more like, oh my God, laughing on a plane on the way to Baltimore to shoot an episode, laughing, reading the script.
It must have been such an amazing, amazing.
It was terrifying. Well, it was terrifying because first, my experience was Daily Show, that didn't go well. Second City, that didn't go well. Then I went on to Observe and Report, didn't go well. And I'm like, oh my God, I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to. Now I'm doing this weird show with Jim Jefferies, and I don't know what to make of it. I'm having a great time, but I don't know if anybody's going to understand this show. It's, I now know it's beautiful and hilarious, but then it seemed odd and I didn't, it was a weird little house in Venice. Now I'm standing toe to toe with arguably the greatest comedic mind, certainly of my generation and maybe of all time in television. And I have to be the bully. Like I just got tossed around for 3 years. I don't know how to be the bully. And so in a way, I just kind of like on the first audition that I did with her, I thought, I'm just going to attack. They're going to have to throw me out of the room then, but I'm going to attack and I'm not going to let up and I'm going to see what happens. And she laughed uproariously and said, can we start again? And then we started again. And she said, keep that, don't change it. Like it was really cool to work with someone who I've been directed by other actors. And I kind of go like, can you do me a favor and not do that? Please don't do that. Don't direct me, man. That's fucking weird. But with her, it never for a second felt like direction. It just felt like someone I respected was saying, been where you are. You're very close. Stay on that track, but turn here. And we got this, and it's what I felt like I was missing at the Daily Show was all I needed was a little direction. And I got a little direction from Julia the first scene we did.
That's great that she's so giving. That.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the other thing is that like, if you do or say something funny and you're with a big star, sometimes that joke can become theirs the next day. And you just go, okay, But Julia instead, like I hate to use the old term, but she yes-anded it. I did a bit where we were rehearsing and she's talking and I just kind of go like, can I get some water over here? Like while she's talking, I turn away and ask for water from my assistant. And she kind of like sits up straight in her chair and goes, I want water too. Like the scene falls apart and turns into us both wanting water and who's going to get it quicker. And then we go back to the scene and that was just in rehearsal. And then it made it into the show. And it was her taking this dumb thing I was doing, which was just me as a terrified actor trying to survive. And she turned it into a hilarious bit.
So they would take the improvs that you guys would do and work it right into the script.
Oh,
so you were impacting the show.
the process on Veep was like nothing else. The first 4 seasons, when Armando Iannucci was the showrunner, his process was we'd come out there, do a table read, then you get up on your feet with the script in your hand and work through scenes one at a time. And eventually they'd say, all right, put the script down and now let's do that scene again. Keep this in mind. Don't worry about the script. Just do whatever you have to. And we would discover funny bits. Julia and I, a couple of years later, had a bit about Silence of the Lambs and being hungry and whatever. And it was all from the improv we did in the rehearsal process. And then it was in the script.
That's awesome. That must feel
Yeah, it's
really
pretty cool.
good. That must feel great.
It does. It does. Except when I go, never got paid as a writer. It's the truth. I mean, same thing on the Daily Show. I had that issue where I was like, wait a minute, I go on the road and do this field piece. I'm saying all of this. There's a piece of paper, but I'm rewording and improvising. And I never got credited as a writer. I don't think I'm as smart as the writers that were. Don't get me wrong. The writers on both of those shows certainly were writers, and I was not. But sometimes you go, when I improvise, aren't I writing?
Yeah.
But I will happily do it.
Well, all right. So hey, before I want to talk about dinner with the parents, but before I did have to ask, you did one other one-off, which History of the World Part 2.
Oh yeah.
And you were Winston Churchill.
Yes.
And I mean, for those of us that saw and lived with History of the World Part 1 for many years, finally the promised sequel that was always promised at the end of the original, you and the gang at Hulu finally brought to fruition. So how was it? Was Mel Brooks there? Did you get to actually engage with him, or was it just exciting to be kind of part of this?
For me, I just wanted to be a part of it. Also, Ike and David and Nick, the guys that were running the show, they were all friends, both from the improv community in New York and from Chicago. And Ike and I had worked together, on Mindy Project and a couple other things throughout the years. And I was like, God, yeah, of course I'll do it. And I was a child of History of the World Part 1. I rode my bike there and I watched it and I came out going, there's going to be a sequel. Like we were sure that this sequel was coming and then it never came.
Right.
And
Jews in space. I mean, there was just so much promise. There was
Hitler
so much
on ice.
Yes.
It was ridiculous. And it was, the beauty was, it was like, it wasn't for the money. It wasn't for the glory. It wasn't for anything other than to be like, I got to be a part of this thing. That's really cool. It's kind of like when Jon Stewart did his last Daily Show the first time around, and he brought us all back. And I didn't have good feelings about my time there, but I went, of course I'm going to go. This is an opportunity to be a part of something cool. Like, not for anyone else to say, hey, that's cool, but for me to be like, I got to be there. Springsteen was in the building. I hung out next to Little Steven. Like I was in an element that I didn't belong in. I'll take it. And the same thing with History of the World was like, well, if I don't get to meet Mel, if I don't get to have the funniest bit, whatever, I don't give a shit. I get to do this thing with people I love and admire. And it's something for my child. I'm in.
Awesome. Yeah, it was it was really, really funny. I doubt there'll be a part 3, but like
I don't think
good.
so. No,
I think we're good with the 2-parter now. So now right now you're starring on Freevy's new show, Dinner with the Parents.
That's right.
And I watched it. I got to see an early screening of it. I enjoyed it a lot. I mean, I'm a Jewish boy, thanks. So like you were hilarious. Everyone's hilarious. I wrote down something because I talked to Michaela, and I wrote this down because I wanted to read it to you.
Yeah, you got to cross-reference because she probably lied to you a lot.
No, this was so nice. She was talking about the process of being, I guess, whatever the process of when she became aware of the show, and she was told that you were going to most likely be offered and play the role of Harvey, her husband, and she had worked together with you before, and that was one of the key pieces of her saying yes to the show, just knowing that you were going to be there and be a part of it. So I thought that was pretty cool. So
yeah, it's a it's a mutual experience, really, which is the strange thing about it, was because at first I said, who's directing or whatever, and they said Tristram Shapiro, who directed a couple of my community episodes, and I was like, I'm in, right? And I said, well, wait a minute, who's going to be the wife? Because that can be a long, difficult engagement if you know. And they said Michaela Watkins, and I said, as long as she's getting paid the same as me, I'm in. And I didn't mean that like as long as I'm getting what Michaela's getting. I meant like I don't want to see Michaela getting paid less than me or some weird shit like happens. I don't know. Maybe I should just keep my mouth shut when it comes to that stuff. But I felt like I'll say it out loud rather than wish I had said it. And they were like, we'll keep that in mind. And I was, of course, they're not going to tell me, but I really was like, don't, that doesn't mean keep me down. It means bring her up if you're not. Like, anyway, that being said, you know, thank God for Michaela. I mean, she and Carol Kane on that show, for me, it was again like going back to a master class of watching two people who know how to do the thing that they do like nobody else does. And the beauty too is that then they go, I don't know, was that any good? And you go, oh, thank God, everybody's worried that they're lousy. And they're not. They're great.
They're all great. You guys,
Oh yeah.
it's did you, this is based on a UK show, Friday Night Dinner. Did you watch it? Were you aware of that beforehand?
No, you know, I tried to, but all that was available was little clips on YouTube and like one preview episode on Amazon, ironically. And then I was like, well, I'm not going to spend money to watch the show. I'll just do what is in the script. And then they even said, don't bother to watch the show. We're not doing that. I think that the tone of that British show was really unique. And I would like to have seen how an American audience would react to it. But I don't know that a really dry farce would fly in the States. So I don't know. I mean, you know, the jury's still out on this show on whether or not it's getting you know, we're out there now. All 10 episodes are out and available. So it's now we're in that proving ground where, well, if people show up and watch, then you'll be back. And if they don't, then you won't.
Do you have any idea how it's doing?
I don't know. I mean, listen, with streaming, we've always been like, well, we're completely in the dark. Who knows? But I tend to think there are certain indicators, like a show that I've never watched that continually shows up on my feed or on my homepage is not a show that I'm asking for. It's a show that the algorithm is giving me. And if they're doing that with our show for people, then we'll be great because people will turn on. If they're not doing that, I don't think you can survive without the algorithm nowadays, unfortunately.
I know a lot of some of the greatest American shows were based on UK shows.
Right. Yeah.
The difference being now that people can see those shows or probably have seen, they have BritBox or something. And
Right.
like when
Yeah.
All in the Family came out, no one had ever seen Till Death Do Us Part or whatever it was.
Right.
Is there, when you take on a show like this now, where it's an adaptation, I won't say
Yeah.
remake, it's an adaptation, but like, is there any trepidation in that, or you're like, no, we went into it, just it's its own thing based on just similar premise?
Yeah, any trepidation I had came too late. Like I at one point reached out to Michaela and I went, "Oh my god, what if?" And she was like, "What? What if we shit all over a time-honored classic that another country had and the guy just died and that's why they stopped doing it and now we're doing another version that is awful?" And I said,
Okay.
"Yes." And she said, "That's always the risk. At any show, that's the risk. It's the same fucking risk." And look, some shows I think they were awfully generous with The Office because at the beginning, I didn't think that show stood a chance because all I could see was this is not The Office. That's all I saw, and they gave it enough time. I don't think we're under that same gun because people aren't passing around copies of Friday Night Dinner, you know, and they're not. It's not like it's screaming to the tops of Amazon or anything. So it's not like it's a really popular line. But I think they also did a really good job, John Beckerman and the rest of the writers and producers, of steering it away from being a word for word adaptation and changing some of the stories and changing some of the relationships and keeping the nugget of the show the same, which is every Friday night, this Jewish family gets together to have Friday night dinner. It's tradition. It's what they've done. That's about all they're willing to do for tradition, but that's what they do, right? And they're idiots, and the parents try too hard, and the kids are both a little skeevy, and the grandmother's got some weird shit going on, and they kept that stuff the same. But other than that, it's it's an entirely different show.
How was working with John Glaser? I think he's hilarious.
Glaser's great. He's nuts. He's another Second City guy. He's from Detroit, but he's a Second City guy. And it was fascinating for me because I knew the legend of John Glaser when I got to town. He was just getting ready to leave to go off to write for Conan when I got to Chicago. So it was kind of like there's John Glaser and there's Adam McKay and there's Tina Fey and Jenna Jolovitz and Scott Adsit and Scott Allman and all these big names in this small improv community of about 1,000 people who care about these 6 people at the top. So I didn't know him, and getting to know him that way was really great, especially in a weird place like London. It's not home, and it's not only not home, it's not in the same time zone. It's not even the same country or the hemisphere. I mean, it's weird, man. An 8-hour time difference is tough with kids. And that's what I had. So, having guys like Glaser, Michaela, the boys, Daniel Thrasher and Henry Hall were tremendous. They didn't seem to miss a beat. They were like, hey, we live in London. And they're off and running, like they're not 50-year-old men.
Well, there's worse places to be stuck and have to live than London.
Yeah.
That's a great place.
I saw a lot of great music while I was there, and I played a lot of pinball. It was a good experience.
Do you have a favorite episode of Dinner with the Parents, or like a scene or something that you remember that like?
I think my favorite. God, there's so many. I just keep thinking of Carell moments where like Carell had to be drunk at the table, and she had to say, "Don't bip it, bop it," or whatever it was, and she just kept saying, "Don't bop it, gabba," like she just kept muttering this gibberish over and over again. And I had a hand in my pocket pinching myself on the leg so I wouldn't giggle during her take because you can see me. That was probably my favorite, like, specific moment. As far as episodes, I love the Seder episode. I thought it was not Seder episode, the Shiva episode. I thought was tremendous and ridiculous, but really fun and sweet and honest.
That was a really funny when Daniel Thrasher's character realizes he's supposed to cater
his own Shiva.
Yeah, the Shiva at the house.
Not his Shiva, right?
Not his Shiva.
That would be amazing.
That would
next season.
That would be. That's a whole different show.
Yeah,
right there. I enjoyed it a lot. There were a lot of things that you recognize John Beckerman's things that he experienced that he put in.
Right. His real life stuff. Yeah. And I think that's what's cool about it is it's not John Popper's story as the first one is, as Friday Night Dinner is. This is John Beckerman's story. So it's a different point of view on it. But I really enjoy the fact that they kind of bury the idea that this is really David's story, the older son. This is really his story. He's the reason. Whose parents are we having dinner with? His, And so it's about him. And I think they did a really nice job of fleshing out that character and making him that character that the audience is going to care about, the one they're going to relate to.
Yes, 100%. And this is why I mentioned dentist earlier. You're a dentist in this.
Yes.
And this
yes.
One is.
And in Life in Pieces, I was ear, nose, and throat. And I've had a few dentists, a few doctors of various odd places. It's never like heart surgeon. It's always like, it's ear, nose, and throat or dentist. They don't trust me with the big stuff.
Neck up, isn't it?
Yeah, that's
awesome. That's I loved it. I thought you were hilarious. And like, here's the funny thing. Like I mentioned this to John and Michaela as well, is this is the first time I was watching a show and I'm like, and it hits me in the middle of it that, I'm the parents. I'm not the
Yeah.
kids anymore. Like
Yeah.
I've aged out of that. I am the parents. And with my dad was a dentist, so that's what threw me at first, because you play dentist, so the dad's a dentist. So I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, okay. So that just in my head kind of put me as a kid. And then I
Yes.
realized, oh, no, 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 no. I have kids this age.
I'm the well, and
I'm
I
the
guess
dad. I'm the
that's what I
dad.
mean by like me realizing that, like, oh, dinner with the parents. Who's saying I got to have dinner with the parents? Not me, not Michaela, not Carol. It's Daniel and Henry. It's their store. Holy shit! But I think they buried that really nicely, not in any for any nefarious purposes, but just like it's a cool thing where it's kind of like you think, oh, it's this family story. And it's like, no, this really is their story. It's the story of these boys and their experience. And that's what I think is so fun about it.
I think it's very fun, very hilarious, and I hope we get to see more episodes. I do have one final question. So, is there anything that we didn't mention that you're like, oh, this is like one of the my favorite things. This is one of my favorite
Well,
things that I've done.
I don't know. I've never done this before, so apologies, but I started a podcast that I'm extremely proud of
Oh,
called Mr. Johnson's Time Machine. And it's something I did with a bunch of my old improv pals from Chicago. And it's a narrative. It's basically like Peabody and Sherman meets drunk history, or some time traveler meets drunk. Bill and Ted meets drunk history. And it's fun and it's ridiculous and it's filthy and it's improvised. So it's very short, and it's I don't know. It's just when we made it, I went, that's what I'm fucking talking about. Like when I finished it, I went, that's what I mean. So if someone ever wants to know what do I think is funny, that's the thing that I'm probably most excited about. And if you hadn't mentioned it, I would have stopped you to talk about Legit 100 years ago. Mr. Johnson's Time Machine.
Mr.
And it's
Johnson's
linear,
Time
so you
Machine.
got to start at episode 1. Don't start in the middle. You won't know what the hell's going on.
I will check that out. But is there any in addition to that, excellently placed plug, and I'll put a link in the show notes and all that.
Oh, that'd be awesome. Thank you.
Happy to do that for you. But is there any like scene or show that you were in that we didn't discuss that you'd be like, this is one you got to check out? This is
I just did an episode of Tulsa King with Stallone, and
season 2.
Yes. Yes. And I can't say anything else, but I'm very excited about that. I do really enjoy that show. I think Andrea Savage and the hell is his name from Freaks and Geeks, and he was on Life in Pieces, but Martin Starr. I think they're both brilliant, and I think Sly is really great in the show.
Tulsa King is amazing. The fact that you just said there's going to be a season 2 for sure. That's awesome. I'm excited now.
Yeah, I just saw that they're bringing season 1 to CBS this summer. So that's pretty exciting. Because that's the thing. I love being a guest. I love showing up and doing a thing for a little bit and then getting out. And I think like those were the shows that I had the most fun on. Shows like that where it's a little dark, but it's funny.
I don't know where Tyler Sheridan comes up with all these ideas.
I don't either. Well, that one also has Terrence Winter attached. So there's this like Sopranos meets Boardwalk Empire kind of thing in there too. Right.
Amazing. Well, I appreciate you hanging out with me. This was so
fun. Man, of course. It was great. Thanks, Jeff. I appreciate it.
You're awesome. Where can people keep up with you on the
Nowhere.
Socials?
I'm not on any of that bullshit. Get off social media.
What's your address so people can write you? Okay. Can type you a letter.
You got it. 434 West 76th Street, New York, New York, 10023. Thank you. Apartment 3C. Sorry to whoever's address that is.
Dan, thank you so much for hanging out with me.
Thanks, Jeff. I appreciate it, man.
All right, man.
Thanks.